You've probably seen those Instagram posts about psilocybin curing someone's depression in one session, or those Netflix documentaries calling it the next big mental health breakthrough. Silicon Valley types microdosing to stay sharp, legal retreats promising you'll come back a whole new person, but nobody talks about the person who went to that exact same retreat and spent the next year feeling like something's just off. Not like they need to check into a hospital or anything. Just this nagging feeling that reality doesn't quite fit right anymore. Surveys on psychedelic experiences show something wild. A decent chunk of people report problems that stick around for over a year. And these aren't stories about sketchy doses or reckless party situations. Some of these people did everything by the book. Legal settings, actual university research trials, trained professionals watching over them, still walked away confused, anxious, and changed in ways nobody prepared them for. The scary part isn't really what happens to your brain during those 6 hours on psilocybin. It's what happens to everything you believe about reality, meaning, and who you actually are when it's over and you're supposed to just go back to normal life. So there's this massive gap in how people talk about this stuff. One side has all these clinical trials showing psilocybin helping with depression, anxiety, people dealing with terminal illness. Media treats it like some miracle drug. The other side is still stuck in that old drugs will fry your brain mentality, talking about psychotic breaks and worst case scenarios. Both sides completely miss where most people actually land. And the thing is, the internet makes this worse. Stories about total transformation get clicks. One ceremony completely changed my life spreads like wildfire, but someone quietly dealing with anxiety or feeling disconnected from reality for months after taking mushrooms, that doesn't trend. They might not even realize those lingering feelings have anything to do with that weekend 6 months ago. If this is hitting different for you, go ahead and subscribe. We're trying to cut through all the hype and actually talk about this stuff honestly. No fear mongering, no selling you something. Just the real conversation that needs to happen. There's this survivorship bias thing happening too. Research shows that most people who have really tough psilocybin experiences still say it helped them in the long run. But there's this other group nobody talks about. People who had lasting distress. Some needed actual psychiatric help. A few even reported suicide attempts that trace back to their experience. And here's what makes it worse. The shame. So many people feel like they somehow failed if they didn't come out healed or enlightened. Especially in spiritual settings where everyone treats psilocybin like this wise teacher. When you're still struggling weeks or months later, facilitators might say you're resisting the medicine instead of recognizing you actually need different help. So people stay quiet because admitting it didn't work feels like letting everyone down. There's also this whole incentive problem. People running retreats, writing books about psychedelics, even some therapists. They've built their whole reputation on this stuff being safe and powerful. And there's a huge difference between how psilocybin works in clinical trials versus real life. In studies, they screen people carefully, measure doses precisely, have trained therapists there the whole time. Serious long-term problems are pretty rare in those controlled situations, but most people aren't doing this through a university research program. They're guessing at doses, mixing substances, and taking mushrooms while dealing with trauma they haven't processed or have basically zero support systems in place to help. That's where things tend to go sideways for longer. A lot of people get what they call an afterglow right after their session. Everything feels clear. They're emotionally connected. Symptoms they came in with seem lighter. Research shows a bunch of these people then crash hard. Regular life comes roaring back. All those unresolved problems are still there. And now they have all these big existential questions but no altered state to make them feel manageable. Studies on people with extended difficulties keep seeing the same patterns. Anxiety, fear, feeling emotionally raw, like your skin's been peeled off. People say they're on the verge of crying in meetings at work. Too vulnerable in family situations where that's not safe. The same thing that makes a beautiful sunset feel profound during a trip can make your negative thoughts feel like eternal truths afterward. I'm a terrible parent stops being a worried thought and starts feeling like this unchangeable fact about your soul. Even in clinical trials, people sometimes say their symptoms got better, but they're still dealing with confusion or disappointment when their old patterns creep back. And if you went into this thinking psilocybin would be the magic fix for everything, you can end up feeling even more hopeless when you realize it didn't solve your toxic relationship or your money problems or the fact that you're living in an unsafe situation. The drug doesn't fix structural issues. It just makes you hyper aware they exist. Then there's the social part. People with extended difficulties talk about feeling completely out of sync with their friends and family when they get back. You're not sure how to explain what happened without sounding crazy. You come back feeling like everything in the universe is connected. Your friends and family are still worried about normal stuff. You can't explain why your job suddenly feels meaningless or why small talk makes you want to crawl out of your skin. It's this weird exile where you're physically there but completely alone in your head. Some people start questioning their whole career path or whether they should stay married, and there's no roadmap for any of it. Psilocybin loosens up these rigid patterns in how you see yourself. You get this perspective where you're watching your life from the outside. That can be healing if your sense of self is stable and you've got support to work through what you're seeing. But if your identity is already fragile or you built it around surviving trauma, suddenly seeing everything from above can break something fundamental. People lose their old motivations overnight. Career goals they chased for years suddenly feel empty. Without help integrating this, it doesn't look like some empowered life change. It looks like apathy and drifting. They're not making conscious choices. Nothing just feels real anymore. People in these extended difficulty studies say things like, "My old self died," or "I felt like I was watching someone else live my life." This can turn into depersonalization, where you're observing yourself from outside your body, emotionally numb, less real than the world around you. After intense psychedelic experiences, some people suddenly reevaluate their marriage or friendships and feel this urgent need to leave or change everything. How do you explain that you experienced infinite love or met what felt like God when your spouse just wants to know what's for dinner? Research shows anxiety and fear are the most common things that stick around after challenging psychedelic experiences. Often, there's no clear reason for it. People describe this background unease, like something's wrong with reality itself, or with them, or with existence. The existential questions become obsessive loops. What's real? Am I still tripping? Did I die and this is something else? They try to think their way back to feeling stable, but the thoughts just spiral deeper. Let me give you an example. There's this one case where someone had this overwhelming sense during their trip that reality is a computer simulation. Felt totally real in the moment. But afterward, every little glitch, every coincidence, every bit of deja vu became evidence. The simulation theory felt more and more real. This fed into chronic anxiety and derealization that lasted months. For a small group, these loops don't stay manageable. They escalate into panic attacks, ongoing visual disturbances, belief changes that look less like spiritual awakening and more like a psychiatric condition. And they rarely connect it back to that one night. If you have a family history of psychosis or bipolar disorder, you're at higher risk. Guidelines are pretty clear that if you or close family members have dealt with schizophrenia or bipolar, you face higher chances of psychotic or manic reactions. If you already deal with panic, health anxiety, depersonalization, derealization, you're more likely to interpret intense states as catastrophic, harder time settling back down afterward. If you're dealing with acute life stress, housing insecurity, abusive relationships, recent trauma, psilocybin can bring buried stuff to the surface without guaranteeing you've got a safe place to process what comes up. People taking psilocybin alone or just recreationally often have zero support structure. Using it too often links to spiritual bypassing, magical thinking, detaching from actual reality. In psilocybin trials, a good chunk of participants report intense anxiety, fear, even panic at high doses, and these are safe, controlled settings. Most still say later that the experience was meaningful and helpful. When intense experiences happen with structure, trained support, good preparation, and integration help, people are more likely to see them as breakthroughs. That exact same intensity alone at a party or in chaos can become traumatic, terrifying with nothing to anchor you or give it meaning. A bad trip in the moment doesn't automatically mean long-term harm. What matters is how you make sense of it after and whether you have support during that process. Studies show people who had overwhelming experiences without understanding or follow-up were way more likely to report ongoing distress. Integration facilitators say people often show up months or even years later, still haunted by one session because nobody helped them unpack it. Here's another example that really drives this home. There was this guy, let's call him Mark, who who was part of a clinical trial for depression, did everything right, screened carefully, supervised session. The trip itself was intense, but he felt supported. Afterward, he had this beautiful 2-week period where his depression lifted. He felt connected to people again, but then he started having these intrusive thoughts about death and meaninglessness that wouldn't stop. Not suicidal, but obsessive. His therapist in the trial helped him work through it over several months. He eventually integrated it into a different relationship with mortality, but he needed those months of weekly therapy. Without that, he's pretty sure he would have spiraled. Most people doing this outside clinical trials don't get that level of support. Isolation comes up again and again in research on extended difficulties. Feeling alone with confusing, scary changes. People who had guides, community, or ongoing therapy had shorter, less intense difficulties. One survey found 11% of people did things that put themselves or others at risk during difficult experiences, usually in unsupervised settings. Preparation really matters. Research emphasizes having realistic expectations, understanding distress is possible, knowing why you're doing this. People who treated it like a guaranteed cure or magic shortcut struggled more when things got messy. Safe, controlled environments with people you trust, minimal chaos, no physical dangers, all linked to better outcomes. Having a clear but flexible reason for doing this gives you something to hold on to during and after. Working through grief. Looking at your patterns. Integration groups and therapists help you revisit what happened, pull out lessons, translate them into actual small changes in your life. People often say they needed more ongoing therapy, life adjustments, social support to actually live out the insights they got. The real work is in the months after, not the hours during. Research keeps showing psilocybin doesn't give you new personality traits. It amplifies what's already there. Your existing themes, conflicts, capacity for insight. That amplification can trigger profound healing when you've got support, or profound confusion when you don't. The same loosening of mental patterns that helps break depression or addiction can also loosen your grip on having a coherent sense of self or reality. Whether you grow or spiral depends heavily on timing, context, and what happens in the aftermath. Studies show some people suffer for years with anxiety, derealization, existential struggle directly connected to a psychedelic experience. Many say they felt unprepared, unsupported, unsure where to turn even though they thought they were being responsible about it. The real risk isn't what psilocybin shows you in those 6 hours, it's that our culture has no infrastructure to help people live with those revelations. Psilocybin can show you unconditional love, your mortality, buried childhood trauma, something that feels like God, or the empty space behind your whole identity. The danger is that right now, most people have to figure out what to do with that completely alone.